It's Pete Cheap Homesteading, and we are in the pasture garden. You know, with everything that was happening in the world, I quickly turned it into a garden, and there is stones everywhere. And last night I sat down and I thought, you know what? I am never going to have enough time in the world to pull all these stones, grab these branches, and clear the land perfectly, and we're going to run out of time. So I kind of looked into how natives planted their crops, and they took a little section and they worked up the earth. They planted their seeds, put some fertilizer, whatever they had, fish or whatever with it, and then they let it grow. Which makes a whole lot of sense because they didn't have rototillers, they didn't have all that kind of stuff. So if I want to get this area planted, this is the only way I'm going to do it, and this is going to be a little bit of a test. So I've been saving acorn squash seeds. So you know the ones you buy at the grocery store? I've been saving the seeds out of them. I've checked to see if they're genetically modified, and they weren't, at least what they tell you anyways. So I've saved all those seeds, and I thought, you know what? I am going to plant them all in here. I'm going to use some chicken manure, and we're just going to see how it goes. So it's going to be a bit of a test. Except running the plow through here a little bit, it hasn't been worked up, and I picked no branches, and I haven't picked up any stones. So I'm going to go around the shovel. We're going to work up a little spot, put some chicken manure, throw some seeds down, and we're going to make a bunch of hills all over here, and I'll show you what I'm going to do. So if you remember, I plowed this whole area with the Massey 50 and the Dearborn plow. It was a few days ago, and then I planted my potatoes over there. I still have a little bit of an area where I can actually plant more stuff, but this side seemed really rough. Like the dirt wasn't as good, and a lot more rocks, and I thought, you know what? This is a great place for me to try out my squash patch, and we're just gonna fill this whole area with squash. I looked at plants that normally animals don't eat, like deer, rabbits, and stuff like that. So they don't eat potatoes very often. They don't eat tomatoes. They don't eat onions. And they don't eat squash very much. They said they like the ripe squash, like the actual fruit. They're not a real fan of the greens, so that's a bonus. So we're just gonna plant them in here, and I'm kind of hoping that they just leave it alone. If it starts to become a problem, we'll maybe run the electric fence around it or something. But other than that, we're just gonna see how it goes. We're gonna plant about 4 seeds, and we're just gonna see what happens. I'm gonna put a ring of chicken manure around it. I'm not gonna put it on top of it because it could actually burn the roots. But I'm hoping that with the rain and everything, it'll just kind of leach in enough. It'll give lots of nutrients, so it'll actually grow really good, but it won't burn the roots. This chicken manure, I dug it out of the pile, which is 2 years old. So it's a little bit rotten. It's not fully composted yet, but I'm hoping it'll actually do a good job with it. Okay, so all I'm gonna do is put a few seeds each mound. And I'm gonna cover them up. And I'm probably gonna try to make one stick straight up so I can actually see that that was a mound. And we'll try to put it around the mound. And go to the next one.
Okay, this is how rotten the chicken manure is. It is just a little bit. It's definitely not fully composted yet. So these I planted in little mounds with about 6 seeds, and then I decided to make a section where I just dug little holes everywhere, and I'll go back and throw about 3 seeds in each hole, cover them up, and throw manure over the whole area. We're just going to see how that works. I think this is going to be a really good test. Do we have to spend that amount of time to make sure the garden is absolutely perfect to actually get a crop? When I looked at the natives, they pretty well just worked up the spot of ground that they actually planted their seeds in, which makes a whole lot of sense to me. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm just working up the one little spot, throw some seeds in it, and then throw manure around it, move on to the next section. I hope I have this whole section full of acorn squash because I love acorn squash. Out of all these, I'm sure I'm gonna get something anyways. It's not all wasted, so. It took me 45 minutes to plant the squash patch. Sometimes you have to do a little bit of an experiment and see if it works. If this way works, I planted my squash in a very short period of time, and I'll have lots of squash this year. If it doesn't, I just wasted 45 minutes. But sometimes you just got to try new things for sure. So I'll show you what I got planted. Okay, so I stopped before I hit the low spot, but this whole area straight up here is all planted in squash. So I just lightly top dressed it with chicken manure. Hopefully I didn't put too much on. I'll keep you updated, and that's about enough for today. So you guys have a good one.